Plami, and in this episode of Plami's Thoughts On, I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on the 5th episode of the 7th season of one of my favorite shows ever, Fear the Walking Dead. And again, I'm gonna have to go on a little bit of a rant, because even though I've been suspended from Reddit for something totally unrelated, and I don't feel bad at all for being suspended from Reddit for defending myself and defending people like me, I still, as much as I try to stop myself from wasting time on Reddit, I still continue to check out certain subreddits, and I still continue to check out the Fear the Walking Dead subreddit, where people, for some reason, they're just never gonna stop shitting on this show. I don't understand why they're so enraged by it. Like, if you don't like it, don't continue to watch it. I just don't understand how you would do otherwise. Like, if I don't like something, I don't torture myself by watching something that I don't like. Like, I didn't like season 4, so I didn't keep watching the show. I watched the first episode of season 5, didn't like it, so I didn't continue watching it. But no, they continue to complain about it, and now apparently this episode is the worst episode since the beer balloon episode, and that's just fucking ridiculous. And why? Because of that cheesy scene in the wrestling ring close to the end of the episode. Like, yeah, that was cheesy, I agree with that, but I don't see why that's necessarily that bad, you know? One of the really good things about Fear the Walking Dead in last season and this season is how the tone of the show can change completely from episode to episode, because all the different stories that they do in the different episodes are so different from each other. So the fact that you can have something really dark and serious in one episode and something more cheesy, like in this episode, is really cool to me. I don't see why everything has to be dark and gritty and moody all the time. Like, there's need to be some funnier and cheesier moments, you know? At the very least, it's experimenting more than the main show. And the criticism that just fucking boggles my mind the most about this episode is that some genius on the Fear the Walking Dead subreddit has realized how writing works. Because they point out how in the almost all the episodes that we've had of season 7 so far, there's our main characters, obviously, and there's another group of characters who are very much a parallel to the main characters, thus leading to character development. Like, for example, in the first episode, Will and Strand are kind of like foils of each other because they both have a relationship with Alicia, but it's kind of the opposite thing, with Strand being an asshole and Alicia not liking him, and Will being probably Alicia's boyfriend, really. In episode 2, we had Morgan and Grace, who had a baby to take care of, and then we had another couple of people who also had a baby, but their baby had died, so that was kind of like a parallel to Morgan and Grace. In episode 3, we didn't really have much of a parallel, but in episode 4, we had Sarah and Josiah, who are very much parallels to each other. And in this episode, we have Dwight and Sherry, and Mickey, who is played by Aisha Tyler, I think her name was, who I'm not like a crazy big fan of hers in terms of acting, because I have barely seen her in anything to say that I'm a big fan of hers in terms of acting, but she played a character in a show that I really used to love as a kid called Ghost Whisperers, which is a show that I will in the future either review or react to on the channel. I don't know which one. So for now, it's most likely gonna be reviewing. So I really loved her in that show, so it's kind of cool to me to see her in Fear the Walking Dead. And her character in this episode is that she is looking for her husband, who is very likely dead, and that is kind of like her parallel to Dwight and Cherry, who were looking for each other until last season. So this person on the subreddit thinks that somehow that is bad because every episode, or almost every episode, has a parallel. I mean, that's how fucking writing works and character development works. Like, what are they supposed to do? At least they're developing the characters, you know? And I feel like the character development is better than last season, at least. And again, at least they're doing something with the characters, because compared to the main show's first 8 episodes of season 11, there was literally no character development, and that's one of my criticisms for season 11 so far, that there's no fucking character development, and it's just shitty plot, and the characters that I'm actually interested in don't get any fucking screen time, and I don't understand why they did it like that, but honestly that is like a topic for its own video. It's just that compared to what happened in season 11's first third of the season, like first 8 episodes, at least Fear the Walking Dead is developing its characters and giving them screen time and stories. Like, you know how much I would have loved to have more episodes that are like self-contained, character-driven episodes, like the Connie episode. We should have had an episode focused on maybe Maggie and Negan and their relationship, maybe an episode focused on Elijah and Gabriel escaping from the Reapers. That would have been fucking cool. And apparently some people continue to criticize Fear the Walking Dead right now this season because there's no fucking plot. And this is more something that I've seen it throughout all the episode discussions on the subreddit, but people keep saying that there's no plot this season, and I don't understand how could anyone think like that? Because it just boggles my mind, how do you not see what the plot is? Like, do you need it to be spelled out to you? Like, what exactly do you think a plot is? Because, like, in terms of comparing it to season 6, like, what was the plot of season 6? The first half, defeat Virginia. The second half, defeat Teddy. In that regard, I guess maybe there is no plot necessarily, or at least not as obvious one as those plots from last season, but there's still very much a plot. There is a character story right now. That is the face-off between Strand and Morgan, and now we have and some mystery with Alicia about where she is, what is happening with her, what Padre is. There is very much a story. We also have the setup for the villains that are the Stalkers, so we very much have a plot. Just because it's not like everything that the show focuses on, but the show instead has multiple parts moving forward, that does not make it plotless. I feel like a lot of people who watch the whole universe as a whole, because I've seen this criticism for the main show as well. People saying that there is no plot, or it's the same plot all the time. It's like, how can you think like that? Like, maybe if the plot for you is something generic or specific, like defeat this villain, in the form of defeating the governor, and then defeat this dictator of the zombie apocalypse in the form of defeating Negan, maybe it's the same plot. But if you consider the plot as in just surviving the zombie apocalypse, that's the plot of the show, then by that logic there is no filler episodes anywhere. Obviously there's some that are less important than others that feel like filler, but by and large them just surviving, and as long as they get some development as characters or some event that impacts them happens, that is the plot. So I don't understand how people can say there is no plot or that the episodes are filler. Like, deciding which episodes are filler, like how after having watched episode 7, right now people say that episode 2 to 6 were filler. No, they were not. There was important character development that happened in these episodes. And yes, I can maybe see how you can say that they are filler episodes because you consider the main plot to be about Strand and finding Alicia. That could be your plot, and maybe looking for Padre, which seems like it's going to be something that we're going to find out about in the mid-season finale. But like, that is just your opinion of what constitutes filler. If you take it from a more objective perspective, none of these episodes are filler because all of them develop the characters and move the plot along, you know? Yeah, I'm getting a little bit sidetracked. I gotta get back to reviewing the episode specifically, and I'm not gonna be doing the usual recap reviews that I do. It's gonna be more of just mentioning moments that I liked in this episode. Okay, but I'm obviously gonna start off kind of chronologically. So in the opening of the episode, we have Dwight and Sherry apparently being some kind of vigilantes in the apocalypse, which I'm okay with. I'm genuinely okay with. I think it's a fine idea, and it's kind of like an extension of what they were doing with the characters even last season, with like helping people and everything. But I feel like with the way Dwight and Sherry are doing it, feels more logical, and it feels more true to their characters, especially considering the things that they've survived. It just fits with them more. It doesn't feel like all the characters of the cast are forced into this helping people shtick, you know? And even in the scene where they end up shooting somebody because they stole food from someone else, it's important to show that they're not. It's not the same as what Morgan was doing 2 seasons ago, where he was helping people even at the expense and risking their own life and not wanting to hurt anybody. No, in Dwight and Sherry's case, they're willing to hurt people. They don't want to, but they're willing to hurt people if need be. And I really love the scene there where Sherry comforts Dwight, telling him that you're not gonna turn into Negan. I really like how we're still seeing consequences from that whole storyline on the main show with Negan. Although it does feel a little weird how we're not really able to quite empathize with the characters, because for us as viewers, it's been how many? 4, close to 5 years since Negan's fall from grace. And for Dwight and Sherry, because Fear the Walking Dead is much further back in the past, it's only been like a year at best since then. And even on the main show, chronologically, in universe, it has been like 6 or... Actually, it's close to 7, 8 years, so it's hard for us as viewers to kind of sympathize with them there. Although, obviously, we understand that they suffer PTSD from dealing with Negan and everything, but it's still a little funky, you know. But I understand, because now, especially nowadays with the main show redeeming Negan into more of like an anti-hero, it's hard to really be in the same emotional state as Dwight and Sherry. So yeah, what else did I like about this episode? I like how when Strand ends up capturing them to kind of send them on an errand. I really love how this season is really finding ways to use the characters in logical and smart ways, with like Dwight and Sherry being essentially people who do your dirty work or some kind of a job for you, because that's essentially what they were doing. They were helping people in the apocalypse by doing errands for them. So that's cool. But I really like when Strand asks Howard to get him the Dark Horses, which is the Dwight and Sherry's vigilante name. And when he finds out that it's Dwight and Sherry, the way he just laughs is hilarious. It's such a memeable moment. I really wish somebody made a meme about it, because it's so fucking funny. And another really funny scene is in the following discussion that he has with Dwight and Sherry about what he wants them to do, and how he explains to them that he's not gonna let Morgan, Sarah, Grace inside the tower. And I just love Dwight's line there, where he says, "You're not gonna let Sarah, Grace, and Morgan inside the tower. You can take the proposal and shove it up your ass." I really did not expect that to be like such a blunt response. Like, Dwight is my favorite character, but that moment really fucking elevated him even more for me. He's genuinely one of my favorite characters in the Walking Dead universe, and in Fear, he has been the best he's ever been. Because on the main show, I liked him because I felt like I could relate to him. He just felt like a more, at the time, a little bit more, interesting version of Daryl's character. Because if you didn't know, if you haven't read the comics, essentially in the comics, Dwight is pretty much Daryl. He was made as a version of Daryl for the comics, because at the time when the show started airing and Daryl was created as a character, Dwight still didn't exist in the comic book. The comic books was still further behind that. So by the time they got to the Negan stuff in the comic book, Daryl had become a pretty popular character, so Robert Kirkman created Dwight essentially as like a version of Daryl. So, yeah, he felt very interesting like a very interesting character to me in the main show, but he never really got that much focus, I feel like. I mean, he got a decent amount of focus, but I feel like he never was he never felt like a main character, which makes sense because he was on the villain side and everything. But on Fear, he's just been so fucking good because he actually is like his own character, and he's like a good guy with three-dimensional personality and everything. And I enjoy that about him. But this episode really made him even better for me. I really enjoyed that moment, and I love. So they declined the proposal by Strand to find a certain person for him, Mickey, and they decide to go back to where they were staying, which is with the family in the basement. But when they go there, they find the place destroyed and the people there dead, as well as the kid. Not only the parents, but the kid as well. And I've again seen some people criticize that moment because of Fear just forcing dark moments for the sake of the show being dark. Like, I don't understand what is wrong with people. How can you criticize this episode for both being cheesy and silly and being too dark? Like, I don't get it. I thought we were. It just feels like the criticism people would criticize the show flips constantly to whatever it would allow them to criticize the show. It really feels like people are just looking for shit to be pissed off by, and regardless of any previous criticisms that people have had for the show, regardless of any kind of context. Because people hated season 4 and 5 because of how happy-go-lucky they were and how there was no actual grittiness or darkness. And now that we get some dark moments like the baby that was turned into a walker few episodes ago, and now in this episode the teenage girl or preteen girl dying, being murdered, people are complaining about it being too dark. Like, shut the fuck up at that point, honestly. And early in the episode, it was shown that White and Sherry, or at least White, kind of had formed a little bit of a fatherly relationship with her, which leads to him at the end of the episode deciding that he wants to actually have kids, which I'm excited for that prospect. We already saw a little bit of a foreshadow, for lack of a better term, of Dwight and Sherry's kids in Grace's imaginary episode last season, which honestly I really enjoyed that episode. I don't understand why people hated it so much. There's aspects of it that I think were annoying, but I think the concept itself was really fucking cool. So yeah, again, I don't want to recap the whole episode, so let's see where we can pick up for things. So yeah, I don't want to really recap the episodes. I feel like I'm kind of falling into the recap review thing again. So let's continue with other things that I like. I really like how Dwight and Mickey have a connection from before the zombie apocalypse. That is something that I feel like the Walking Dead universe really hasn't explored or used as much as it should. And because of that, I feel like that is one of the reasons why it's so satisfying to have characters with pre-existing relationships. Although in this case, it's not as much of a relationship as it was with Teddy and John Dory Sr. But I still like that Dwight knows Mickey from before the zombie apocalypse, because it kind of just makes the world feel more real, you know, because most of the time the characters do not really kind of acknowledge anything that happened before the zombie apocalypse. I don't know, it just adds a certain level of realism that Fear the Walking Dead has lacked since season 3. I don't know, it's just really cool to have the pre-existing connections. I really like that aspect. I want more of that, honestly. And yeah, as a whole, I also really liked Mickey in this character. As I said, I'm a fan of the actress because she was on a show that I really, really loved as a kid. So it was cool to see her here, but I think her character as well was pretty fine, although how much we are going to see of her in this season, I don't know, because there's quite a lot of even new introduced characters in the last few episodes that might not really get that much screen time that I enjoy, like Josiah. At least we know that Will is going to get more screen time in a flashback episode, so I'm excited for that one. But yeah, going back to the going back to the wrestling against Walker scene close to the end of the episode, I really don't understand where all the fuss, what's all the fuss. Yeah, going back to the wrestling with Walker scene close to the end of the episode, I really don't understand what the fuss is all about with that scene. It's cheesy, yes. It's kind of over the top, yes, and it's silly, yes. But I don't think that is necessarily that bad. It's not like Fear the Walking Dead has claimed to be like the most serious show ever. Having silly moments like that is something that even the original 3 seasons had, I feel like. I feel like it never has been that gritty, and especially in the reboot, which I know is not really necessarily that good of an argument, but I just don't really see why just it being kind of cheesy is a bad thing. I feel like it works, it fits. It's not like it takes me out of the episode or anything, and I enjoyed it. I laughed out loud at how over the top it is, but it was enjoyable, you know? I enjoyed it for the same reason why I enjoy Far Cry 3, for example, which is a very interesting comparison to make for me, because when you think about it, the last 2 seasons of Fear the Walking Dead actually have a shocking amount of similarities with Far Cry games. For example, you have in Far Cry 5, you have a cultist who wants to destroy the world or ends up destroying the world with a nuke, which is the same as in Fear the Walking Dead. In the future post-nuke world that we saw in episode 12 of season 6, that was the Grace dream episode, the fallout, the trees had a pink hazing on them, the leaves looked pink, and in Far Cry New Dawn, which is set after the ending of Far Cry 5, you also have a lot of trees and grass and everything having the pink leaves on it. So that's another reference as well. And now with this scene in this episode, where it had the cheesy music onto it, where they were killing walkers on the wrestling ring, feels tonally very similar to that one scene in the Far Cry 3 game, where you are supposed to burn a lot of weed. And the song Burn Them or something plays. Like, if you've played Far Cry 3, you know what song I'm talking about. And tonally, this scene and that one really felt very similar, and the songs as well are probably in the same genre, so I like that. I really did like that. So yeah, it turns out that Mickey's husband is dead, which was sad, and I guess when you think about it, considering that Mickey is in her husband's relationship is supposed to be like a parallel to Dwight and Sherry, it makes sense why after that scene Dwight talks to Sherry talking about how he wants to have children, kind of furthering their development and relationship. And I really like that. I personally really like when I can notice this kind of writing things, you know, when I can understand how writing works. And yet some people like to use that as a criticism toward the show. I don't get it. I just don't. So afterwards, Mickey apparently kind of joins their group and becomes one of the Dark Horses. And at the end of the episode, they are met by the Stalkers. Where that's gonna go, I don't know. Well, I do, but I'm not gonna talk about it because it's a spoiler. But yeah, overall, I enjoyed this episode. Yes, do I think it could have been maybe a little bit more enjoyable? And as I was watching it, there was moments where I felt like it didn't quite hit as much as it should have, because I'm a huge fan of Dwight and I wanted to get a really, really enjoyable Dwight episode. But I feel like his episode with Sherry last season was a little better. But I still really enjoyed it quite a lot, and I don't understand people who just whine about it. Like, criticisms are fine, but whining about it and nitpicking the fuck out of it without at least saying that you are nitpicking, it's just annoying, and I don't think it's the right way to watch a show, you know? But yeah. In terms of a rating for this episode, I don't remember how I rated the other episodes until this point, because it's been like 3 weeks since I reviewed an episode, which I'm sorry about that I took so long in reviewing this, but things happened. But for this episode, I think I'm gonna give it an 8.4 out of 10. It was good, it was enjoyable, definitely had some room for growth, but I enjoyed it, and depending on where stuff are going to go going forward and whether we're actually gonna get to see Dwight and Sherry have kids, it might turn out to be even better on a rewatch, but right now I think it's a solid 8.4 out of 10. But yeah, what did you guys think about this episode? Comment down below and let's have a discussion about it. And also, before we end this video, I just want to give a huge shout out to my currently 3 patrons on Patreon: Omari Bridgman, Deadpool, and Lemonade. Thank you guys for supporting me. It really means a lot that you have decided to support me and allow me to do these videos more and support myself through doing these videos, because I truly love giving you guys content that you enjoy. So I hope you stay over there for a long time. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, please leave a like and subscribe. Also, check out the link in the description to my Twitter if you don't follow me over there, and to my Wattpad where I post my stories, because in addition to doing all these videos on my channel, I'm also a writer. And if you don't enjoy my stories or you simply enjoy my videos, you can head over to Patreon where you can pledge support and help get the channel going, help support me so I can keep writing the stories you enjoy. But if you don't want to do it, that's completely fine. You can still help me out in other ways, like liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and especially sharing this video with somebody who you think might enjoy it. And I think that's pretty much it for this video, so hopefully I'm gonna see you in the next one. Bye!